And now for the Black Firehouse Podcast, the only Ghostbusters podcast that discusses props, costumes, sets, and special effects, with your hosts, Austin Young and Dan Harshman.
You know, it's just occurred to me we really haven't had a completely successful test of this equipment.
I blame myself.
So do I. Now let's get ready. Switch me on.
Good morning, Black Firehouse listeners. This is Dan, as always, with his co-host,
Austin Young.
Welcome you guys back to Session 6, Part 2 of our 3-part series about Ghostbusters Proton Packs. Austin, how you doing today, bud?
I'm doing all right. I got some progress made on my props, so that's always good.
Excellent. Yeah, and hopefully we're having some progress with the podcast, so kind of bringing everybody up to speed. This has been kind of a cursed couple weeks on my side, and it seems like it's all down to my computer and a really piss-poor wireless connection between my laptop and our Verizon router. So we are having to re-record this session, and then we will have to re-record the roundtable. So it is Monday night on the 21st, and we're re-recording this content for release for you guys Tuesday morning. So I hope you all appreciate what we do, because we definitely appreciate our listeners.
And we're tired of living in Groundhog Day.
I am super tired of living in Groundhog Day. So let's see, Austin. We have a couple things to catch up on. Let's go ahead and touch on one of the coolest parts, I think, is you finally got around to getting your copy of the Ghostbusters Ultimate Collection.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so that is I don't know if I would say that it is a prop builder's dream kit, but as a Ghostbusters fan, it is super cool, and it also gives us some really cool insight that we may not have seen before, especially with that preview cut. What were your thoughts on that?
It's crazy because it's an alternate dimensions version of Ghostbusters.
It really is.
I mean, it's the same movie but different. There's no other way to describe it.
It's kind of like the difference between growing up and watching Ghostbusters on just the pan and scan, the original VHS, and then in the late 90s when they finally came out with the letterbox edition. For someone like you and I had never seen it in theaters until the late 90s, and when I did, I didn't want to see the movie anymore because there was so much that were on the sidebars that I felt like I was missing. And now with the preview cut, I'm just waiting. I'm like counting down the time until somebody finally goes ahead and puts together, a ultimate fan cut of all that lost footage.
Oh, it's coming. Like somebody is out there slaving away at their computer right now, trying to restore the footage as best they can, and insert audio and music and special effects and all that jazz. And I'm sure somebody's, they're trying to work in every possible piece of deleted footage that they can possibly get their hands on.
It's Dave Van. We all know it is.
Yeah, probably. I mean, and I'm all for it, man. I'm always interested in like fan edits and fan cuts of things that are, trying to give us something that could have been, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you watch the preview cut, did you mentally add in music and things like that? I did.
No, it's really weird because like on any given day at any point, I'm playing Ghostbusters or Ghostbusters 2 in my head.
Sure.
And I hear the music cues and the special effects and whatever. But there was something so just bizarre about seeing this version of the movie that like it's literally like watching the movie again for the first time. So I'm just paying attention, I'm taking it all in, and the thing that I really caught myself doing more than anything is noticing, obviously people like us who have seen the movie an ungodly amount of times, we know, okay, that take is what's in the movie.
Right.
That takes an alternate take. But it was really interesting for me to sit down and see, something people don't really realize is a lot of the audio from the theatrical cut is from different angles of the same scene.
Yes.
From a wide shot, that audio is laid over a close up of another character, an insert shot or something. And so I noticed a lot of that sort of stuff, which was it was fun to see kind of the raw footage, so to speak, of where those audio clips come from.
Now, and I would agree with you. I especially noticed the input of audio when they're running away from the library.
Yeah.
And they added in Venkman's line of, we'll get back to you. What?
Yeah.
How about from a prop standpoint? Was there anything new or exciting that you saw in the Ultimate Collector's Edition that you hadn't seen before, prop wise?
Not really, other than especially not really in the preview cut. There's that infamous black and white still photo that's of Ray coming up out of that stairwell holding the what is the yellow bar trap.
Mm-hmm.
And Venkman's off to the side, kind of looking grossed out, and I'm assuming their client or whoever is on the other side of the frame. And that footage is in the movie, but it's in black and white. And I was, for a split second, when I saw that footage extended, I got all excited, thinking, "Oh, we finally got new angles and new shots of the yellow rod trap," and and it's all in black and white. I was like, "Oh, well, okay."
Well,
I
we
guess.
tried.
And it's like beta quality, so it really wouldn't have mattered anyway, I guess. But
I was one of my white whales actually made an additional appearance, and I was so excited about that, which was the base portion of the proton charger tower.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I've forgotten about that, but that does show up in this
I
version's
cannot
montage.
forget about that. And I'm still so set aside at how complex a prop that they built that gets almost no screen time. And if not no screen time, then almost no relevance to the movie whatsoever. For a piece that used to play it looks like a larger part, at least in the montage.
Well, I mean, and there's that throwaway line you think of Venkman saying, "Oh, we're going to charge you for proton charging," and maybe it was ad-libbed, maybe it was in the script. I don't really remember. I'm sure somebody will know and will is screaming at the podcast right now about it. But it's interesting, knowing that there's a proton charger prop.
Yes.
That's what it's there for, and it is a real thing that they had to do. And it's so cool that it can add that little extra bit of context.
The little bit of context and just seeing how it operates, how it glows, which I thought was cool. I don't know if that was an overlay or if that was lighting. It's really difficult to ascertain from the photos that we have and just that little bit of footage if that gold box is itself the element that's glowing. So I'm definitely going to have to go back through, take some additional screenshots and analyze that, and then struggle over ever finding whatever part that is.
That and the casing itself.
I dived back into trying to find the casing again, and the case that it sits in, it's like one of those words that's sitting on the tip of your tongue where you feel like you know exactly what it is, but you can't quite find it.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone down that rabbit hole and tried to research and find it, and it's just it's such a specific thing, yet it's so generic at the same time.
It is. It's, and then it gets into the weird and intricate details, like what looks like a volume monitor embedded into the frame itself, or then it kind of looks like it might be two units stacked on top of each other. And then it looks like it might have some rolling trays that come out of it, but then there's the bizarre X frame that's around it, which is not it's not plumb to every other angle. So it's one of those props that it gets weirder the longer you look at it.
I mean, it's clearly just cobbled together.
I mean, it's definitely just cobbled together junk, but I want to know what junk it is.
Yeah.
That's
that's going to be one of those things that, at least you and I are probably going to be researching for the next 20 years until, we're in our 50s and finally we've figured it all out.
We'll actually find the unit over at Apex Electronics as it was in '83, and I'll be like, oh, finally, I'll buy that.
They rented it out.
Well, that's the other thing. It could have been a rented piece.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Who knows, man? We got to find somebody that knows. Somebody's out there has got information.
I feel like our sources are going to continue to get more and more limited.
Yeah.
So then we have the unfortunate news, which is Ivan Reitman has passed.
Yeah.
And that of course is an enormous impact to the Ghostbusters community. Dan Aykroyd has always been the vocal outside champion for Ghostbusters, but it seems like Ivan was always the studio champion.
Yeah, definitely.
And we've lost that.
Yeah.
How has, what were your first reactions to the passing of Mr. Reitman?
Right off the bat, it's like, no way. This is wrong. This is fake. Like, I was just watching YouTube and hadn't really looked at my phone, and I picked it up, and there was this like a group Discord thing that I'm in, and somebody had posted the link. They're like, "Hey, we lost Ivan," and I was just, I just didn't believe it at first, and then so immediately I go to Google, and it's like it's all over the place, and I'm just like, "Fuck!"
It was dumbfounding.
Like it, especially considering everything we've just had, everything we've just gone through, and the success and just everything involving Ghostbusters Afterlife has been so great, and it's been such a positive thing, and this is like a really weird way to cap that off. Unfortunate way to cap that off.
It almost feels like Charles Schultz when he retired.
Yeah.
When Charles Schultz retired, he passed away almost immediately when he stopped writing Peanuts. And then with Ivan Reitman, it's like Ghostbusters Afterlife, even though it was directed by his son, his fingerprints are all over it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it's not really a theory. It's just something Ivan probably, he co-directed that movie.
He could have directed that movie. He could have.
He co-directed it with Jason.
Oh, he co-directed it. Yeah. No. He co-directed it. There was a lot of, in the behind the scenes stuff, Jason, he made no illusion about that, and that he was seeking a lot of active on-site approval from his father, which I thought that was great.
Yeah, well, and it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that, like, he's secretly directing and all that. Like, Jason, of course, is a fantastic director, but it has
Jason in it. I mean, like, he is clearly the primary director, but I know what you're talking about. I definitely see what you're talking about.
It was definitely a collaborative thing. I feel like, and it's it's like you're saying, it's a little eerie, it's a little spooky, the way it works out, but at the same time, it's so great that he got to hang around to see this movie come to be. He got to have that experience with his son, being on set, seeing the movie come to life, seeing the finished film, seeing the reaction it got, all the success. It's not a bad way to go out, No, it's not a bad note to go out on.
He's going out on a definite high with a definite, concise respect to his legacy. It's not like he just helmed a kindergarten cop remake, that was poorly received, the Ghostbusters Afterlife was definitely, something that was incredibly well received by most fans.
Yeah.
And of course, we owe so much to Ivan for essentially directing our childhood.
Yeah.
Even outside of Ghostbusters, but he directed Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and that's where our obsession starts. This podcast would not exist if
Yeah. I mean,
Ivan
you and
didn't
I
take
wouldn't
it.
ever have been friends. Like,
No.
I mentioned this in our last recording, but like the majority of my friends I wouldn't have,
The
all
majority
the
of my experiences.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is like all of these amazing experiences that I've got to have in my lifetime. I mean, it's all because of these dumb movies, dude.
Yeah,
it's crazy, and
it is crazy. So I'll cap that off with saying from the Black Firehouse podcast, from myself and Austin to the entire Reitman family, we are heartbroken at your loss. And we are absolutely thoughts and hearts and minds with you during your time of mourning, and but hope that you'll be able to come back and see that we're still here to support Ivan's legacy, and we will continue to do so.
100%.
Absolutely. So in a little bit more lighthearted news, we are soon going to be launching a new segment of the Black Firehouse podcast. Austin, do you remember me talking to you about this?
I do, because we've talked about it like 30 times every time we try to record
as we struggle to crawl our way out of our own personal Groundhog's Day hell. So we are launching a new segment. It's not going to be during the roundtable show. It's going to be in the show after that. So that will be session 8 that it launches. But we're essentially going to be starting to discuss some of our favorite prop builds, either in process or completed, from the entire Ghostbusters community. And I'm particularly excited about this because we are not just sticking to Spengler's 1984 workbench. We're going to be looking at anything that's exciting to us from across the entire Ghostbusters community. So, if it's the RTV Builders Club, or if it is 3D printed Ghostbuster props, or even the spirit groups, we're going to be going out there and looking for builds that are exciting to us, that we're excited about, and that we're excited to see finished. We haven't gotten a name for that segment yet, but we will come up with one. Maybe, I don't know, you've earned it.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah,
maybe we'll change it every episode.
Yeah, there you go. We could always do that as well. But that's going to be something coming up in the future of the Black Firehouse podcast. And then I have a little bit of a secret project, Austin, that I haven't even told you about, that I'm very, very excited about. And this one I'm going to keep close to my chest. It's not necessarily prop related, but it is the Black Firehouse podcast related. And it is a partnership with Tony Taylor Toys.
He's going to print us our own firehouse, like full scale
translucent resin firehouse. Nope, that's not what it is.
Oh, okay.
But that's all I'm going to leave you with. That's
okay.
That is the most that you get, but it will be an exclusive. It will be a thank you gift to many of our friends and inspirations. And I think you will be very, very happy with it. So from there, yeah,
I'm excited. We all love Tony Taylor. So
we do.
It's gonna be fun.
He does amazing work. So
Definitely.
From that, let's get into what's on our workbench. You ready, Austin?
I am ready as ever.
What is that thing you're doing?
It's technical. It's one of our little toys.
The Proton Pack is not a toy.
I guess that's right.
All right, and welcome back to the Black Firehouse Podcast again with Austin and your host Dan. We are talking about what's on our workbench. Austin, for the billionth time that nobody has heard in the past 2 weeks, what is on your workbench, bud?
Well, I'm still working on a Phoebe pack, and I still have my Phoebe bunt cake potato masher props, whatever they are,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe we talked about on the last episode that actually got released. I had ordered the parts from Amazon, and I got them in, and I kind of tinkered around with them and kind of mocked up the final layout and parts and stuff for them, and I just had to find the tripods.
Still
Which
working on those tripods, huh?
I haven't actually got since I talked about these originally. I haven't even really gone back to look for the right tripods. I may have to just buy something kind of a little more generic as stand-ins until I can figure out what the real ones are. But that's basically all that's left on those is I need tripods, and then I can just mount them, and then boom, I've got these weird ass background props that nobody else cares about.
I care. I care about them.
I think why I love them is because they're very much in the spirit of, the original props. Like,
Sure.
the KUD meter, of course, is built with a metal detector and some kitchen utensils, and the colander helmet, right? Like iconic Ghostbusters prop, and these fit right in with that kind of just homebrew, use whatever's laying around kind of aesthetic. And I think that's what just kind of drew them to me, is because they fit right in.
I always love there is a definite aesthetic to Ghostbusters props.
Yeah.
Especially the background props of it's almost like kit bashing on a massive scale.
Yeah, well, even the tripod traps,
Yeah,
feel like they look like they're maybe some kind of custom made thing, but then, I mean, like the props themselves, they're kit bashed from a bunch of random stuff, and the more
and
you
it's
start to
always
examine
rare and
them,
hard to find stuff.
oh my god, dude, I remember when it was finally like figured out that there was like, what is a V-ring meter or whatever, like
Yeah.
the main body. I immediately went to eBay, and there was one on eBay, and it was like $900.
Yeah,
And I was
I
like,
know.
I'm 15 years old. I don't have $900 to buy this.
I know. Still being super jealous of Ben King. He actually owns a V-ring meter.
Does he?
He does, and I've tried. I hear that tone in your voice. Don't even
Okay,
bark
hold
up
on.
that
No,
tree.
I don't even hold on, Ben. I'm speaking to you personally right now. I do not want to purchase the V-ring meter from you, but I would love to maybe borrow the V-ring meter from you. I would like to take some measurements. And
Well, if you want measurements, why haven't you reached out to our other buddy?
well, it's not. I want more than measurements. I want to mold it. But
you know what, though? You know what? Ben is such a friendly guy. That could be a possibility. That might be something that we have to look into, because I would be interested in backing up a project like that of
if
casts
Ben,
and a V-ring meter.
if you're listening, Ben, help a brother out. Let's do this. Let's make
Ben,
this
your
happen.
future
Because
as a moderator on Spengler's 1984 workbench relies on that's a total lie. Ben is excellent. He's excellent people, but
yeah,
we'll have to look into that, because that could be a really exciting project.
I did not know that he owned one of those, because if I had known, I would have bugged him about this a long time ago.
Well, now everybody who listens to the podcast is reaching out to poor Ben and being like, "Take my money for your V-ring meter."
Hang on, this podcast isn't posted yet as of this recording, so I still got some time to get a hold of it from.
Get in line, boy.
Yeah.
I'm currently being tortured by Freaky Geeky. Yeah. So he is back in production, which I am super, super excited about. I am really, really happy to see RJ back in his workshop working on his stuff, and he's producing even more accurate throwers than he has before.
Yeah, I've been seeing his progress pictures he's been posting. It's pretty. It's just awesome to see that stuff,
It is, but it is come to my attention that his newest iteration of his thrower, the ones that he's been posting pictures of, one may or may not be destined to be purchased by me, but the accuracy on them is pretty paramount. And I have been getting my arm twisted by my buddy Julian to make that into my Ghostbusters 1 superhero thrower, which pisses me off to no end because I'm almost done with that Ghostbusters 1 superhero thrower. Like, the entire thing is all wired up. All it's missing is the bar graph and the grill piece. And then I was going to seal it up and it was done. And I was so happy about that because then all I would have to do is plug it into the pack when I remake that. The superhero project has been horrendous because, of course, I want it to be my top of the line, my cherry pack, the one that maybe I'll wear out once or twice, but is mostly going to be on the wall. So, at first it was, well, I got my Chris Bosch shell, and this is the best shell available. Okay, I'm almost done with it. And then Max Factory is like, oh, well, we're releasing, legacy castings off of the superhero shell. Oh, son of a bitch. Okay. So then Julian's like, hey, I've been helping RJ on redesigning, the wands. So his next generation of wands will be even more accurate. I'm like, God damn it. So I'm not even ever going to have a finished Proton Pack. It's just going to be multiple iterations of what may have been the most accurate piece. And then
it's perpetually in progress.
It's perpetually in progress. Well, the frustrating thing is I have a real heat sink on this current thrower.
Oh, that's easily removed, though.
There's a little bit of epoxy putty involved there.
It's fine. You can get it off.
I can.
You will.
Just, I probably will. Julian already had me thinking about it. I was like, all right, well, what pieces can I easily get back off there? Because, I just got the clippered hose on there, which I was happy about because the rear instrument bar clippered hose is actually off my first movie pack that I ever built. It's Mark 1 throwing chicken thrower met a grizzly shattered end. But the hose was vintage green clippered hosing.
Very nice.
So I can pull that off of it. I can pull off the vintage hat lights.
Now, do you have?
But then the electronics, I don't know what to do with the electronics.
I mean, yeah, because they're such a son of a bitch to get in there.
They are, and when you wire up that front end flash bulb and everything then gets heat shrink in, I mean, it's really weaved in there. I would have to cut that heat shrink off and then somehow not cut all those super thin gauged wires.
Yeah,
it's an absolute nightmare to think of. But
I mean, first world problems, right?
I mean, definitely Ghostbusters prop enthusiast first world problems. I mean, these aren't even standard first world problems. They are high-end obsessive compulsive nerd problems. Like, oh, I'm sorry that your really expensive toy might need to be a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, there's always the option you could just, pick off the real parts you want to keep and replace them with replicas or whatever, and then just sell the whole thing with the electronics and get some more electronics.
My plan was always to do a Ghostbusters 2 superhero to go along with it. And so technically what could end up happening is I'm hoping Rabid Prototypes will go back into production. He's having issues in getting a lot of his stuff in right now just because of, the way the world is. But if he's able to go back into production and offer his kits again, I'd like to get one more. And then I would like to use, Ghostbuster fans on other kits or custom things. But if I can get another Rabid Prototypes kit, then I won't have much of an issue. It'll be a lot easier for me to go ahead and pry off the heat sink, take out the vintage hat lights, because then I can just redo everything.
Now, do you have a vintage, opaque orange hat lights?
I have one.
Okay.
And I specifically put that on the gunnier.
Yeah.
So that I have one nickel-plated insert, milky white. Then the other 4 or 5 that I have the copper insert instead of the nickel-plated. So I wanted the nickel-plated on my Ghostbusters 1 superhero, and then I have one opaque orange vintage hat light. But even that one being vintage, I still don't think it's old enough because the color just it seems a lot closer to a modern unit than what we see in the film and what we see on the prop right now.
Yeah, because I've got a bunch of orange ones, but they're not the opaque ones.
They're the translucent ones.
Yeah,
which
and
are cool.
Yeah, and they'll work for idealized builds and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll probably never use them because AJ sells those really awesome opaque
his replicas are gorgeous.
So
yeah, his replicas are gorgeous. I have probably 10 of each of his replicas that I ordered right off the bat before they vanished for potential pack builds or just giving to people because every once in a while some people are like, hey, I really want this part. I'm thinking about 3D printing it. Well, here's this excellent replica. I have plenty. Don't worry about it.
I need to take a page out of your book and just start ordering stuff like when it's available because I just recently found out that the white foam for the Alice frame is like discontinued and AJ is sold out. And when he first stocked it, I was like, "Oh, that stuff! It'll be around forever. I'll grab some at some point, when I'm ready to do my GB1 hero build." And now it's like, "Oh, well, now I can't get it."
You're not thinking how Ghostbuster props are, which is the moment we identify something, if it is available, it immediately sells out.
It's such a commonly used thing. I was like, "There's no way that it'll ever stop being made," but I guess I was just stupid idiot like always.
How dare.
And,
How
but
dare.
then our good buddy Matt Burkett apparently found a source on like Granger. It's for some pretty similar stuff.
Good.
Or maybe it was Fastenal. But
I
know
to
say, I'm going to be ordering some of that. So.
Well, I know if AJ can find a good solid source for it, he'll restock it. He's good about that.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll go ahead and mention one of the last things since we mentioned the collector's edition of Ghostbusters there. The Mercury sniffer and the Bacharach voltmeter that shows up all over the place in Ghostbusters. I did get those.
Yes. I wanted to get that voltmeter, but when I hit eBay, like all the good ones have been bought up, and I was like, "Well, it's what I get for being an hour and a half late to the thread."
I was really happy. Mine still works and has its original leads, so that it has the screen accurate leads with it. So I'm just like, I'm really excited about that.
That's cool. I just bought a sniffer like randomly. I wasn't even searching for like that Bacharach item, or I was searching. Every once in a while, I'll hit up eBay because I lost the little the wand or whatever it's called to my GB1 sniffer.
Yeah.
And so I always hit eBay, periodically to check. Maybe one will pop up. And one of the sniffer that's in the back of the Afterlife Ecto 1, there was one that was like buy it now for like $40.
Oh, wow.
And it had everything with it. And I was like, well, I'm not passing that up. So
I don't blame you. Great score. Well,
yeah,
awesome.
And it came in and it's super cool. And it's got a wand with it and it fits on my sniffer. It's not screen accurate, but I mean, it's a placeholder. So
there you go. Yeah, that is one of the props that I still kick myself in the butt. I sat on way too long when sniffer like 302s were fairly abundant. And now I can't find any of the sniffer 300 series at all.
Yeah, I mean, I got mine from Jairus when Jairus found all those in a lot or whatever on eBay, and I think I got a couple of them from him. And
a couple, you say?
I don't have the other one, but I actually might be able to get one from somebody else for you. So,
well, we'll have to talk about that.
We'll talk off the air, yeah.
As everybody again starts private messaging us for we're gonna get that.
Not from me.
Not from me, sorry. Don't worry, guys. I can't even get the accurate set of frames off of Austin over here, so don't try.
Hey, here's the thing. If you'd have never said anything, and if you'd have never told me that they were like super rare, super accurate to GB1, like I might have eventually sold them to you, but now it's like, no. These are mine, baby.
Well,
and
I just
want to hang on to them to torture you more than anything.
That's okay. That's all right. With AJ's new frame replicas coming out, I won't need them.
Those things are so beautiful. And you can wear them without worrying about dropping them and having them shatter into pieces.
Yeah, which is a yeah. I have a set of real goggle frames that I will convert, but it's
Yeah.
going to be shelf decoration. I don't know what it is about those alpha models and earlier of the PVS fives, but they are fragile. Well, let's get into it, man. Let's do our session 2 on Ghostbusters 1 Proton Packs.
Listen. You smell something?
There's something very important I forgot to tell you.
What?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Why?
And welcome back to the Black Firehouse Podcast. As always, your hosts, Dan Harshman and Austin Young. We're going to go ahead and leap into part 2 of the Proton Pack discussion, Proton Packs from Ghostbusters 1. Of course, guys, you can always follow along with the discussion over at Spengler's 1984 Workbench on Facebook.com. You can always give Black Firehouse Podcast a like on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or, of course, listen to us on our RSS feed at rss.com, Spotify, or on iTunes. So, Austin, last time, when we spoke about Proton Packs, we really delved into a lot of the baseline information, and spoke a lot about the superhero Proton Pack, which is, my personal favorite. And I don't know if it's because it's just a little bit different than all the other ones, or if it's like the granddaddy to all the Proton Packs. But what about you? Which one, when it comes to the 4 heroes, is your favorite?
I kind of have 2.
Okay.
I really like the Stance Pack.
Sure.
Just because Ray's kind of always been my favorite. And it's got a couple of unique things about it, like the different resistors on it.
Mm-hmm.
That really wonky, horribly offset cyclotron lens hole, and just some stuff like that. And then I really like the Spengler for the same reasons. It's got a lot of unique quirks and stuff about it, like the horizontal bar that's welded to the booster tube and the ion arm, and
the weld shank is completely different on the Spengler.
And it's kind of interesting. They sort of tried to replicate it on the Phoebe pack.
It seems like on the Phoebe pack, it looked like they kind of tried to replicate both.
Yeah, instead of having like the chunk of round stock wedged in between the two and welded, it's honestly the entire void between the ion arm and the booster tube is actually filled, and then it's got this angled. I don't know if it's a part of the piece that's filling the void, or if it's a separate plate that's laid on top, but it's like an angled flat plate that's welded on, and then it's got that kind of smaller, narrower horizontal piece welded on top of that.
Which always strikes me as interesting, because there's a lot on the Ghostbusters Afterlife Proton Packs that they are clearly getting from the superhero.
Yeah.
But then there's these little elements like that welded shank that are from the actual Spengler hero. So somebody at some point was paying attention to what actually was the Spengler hero pack.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I don't, because those welds are also on the packs that the guys wear. The original, it's supposed to be the original packs, from the Venkman and the Zeddemore and the Stance. So they're also present on that. So it's just a really weird detail that carried over from the Spengler pack specifically onto the Afterlife pack, but it is no longer a unique detail to the Spengler pack in Afterlife. Right. It's just really strange, but
Do you feel that Afterlife erased some of the uniqueness of the Proton Packs?
Not intentionally.
Not intentionally.
Not intentionally. I mean, and they, the 4 packs that are in the film, the Phoebe or the Spengler, the Venkman, the Stance, the Zeddemore, they all have their own unique weathering and things like that. Obviously, the Phoebe has all the additional add-ons and stuff, but they went out of their way to make sure that each one was unique in terms of the weathering, and not just in terms of like the silver scratches or paint missing, but like the bumpers have gouges and gashes put into them, and they're unique on every one of them, including the Phoebe's got its own gouges and stuff in it, and it's got scratches in the cyclotron and all that stuff. So in terms of having kind of a unique fingerprint for each character, it's still there, it's just different.
Sure.
It's not the same. I don't know if we're supposed to believe these are the same 4-packs that they wore way back when or whatever, but I like to think that they're newer packs that at some point have just gotten beat up.
Yeah. Well, and we're definitely going to have to do an episode on Afterlife Proton Packs, because there are so many changes from one to the other. But going back to Ghostbusters 1 Proton Packs, we know that they were just a standard, resin cast. I think one of the coolest things that ended up getting drawn over into the video game was a problem with the stance pack and the light leaks on the power cell box. Because it was just fiberglass, there was no resin gel coat, and even though they painted them, at some point the paint got scratched off on that part of the pack. And while you can't tell when the pack is off, when the bar graph is going, that light bleeds through and makes it look like there's 2 additional lights over on it. Are there other kinds of like mistakes or gaps on the Proton Packs that make them unique that you particularly appreciate?
I mean, stuff like epoxy sloppily applied, and the like on the superhero, I guess initially, like the bumper being backwards, but the label is still placed in that little valley. Like just having to like shove it in there just so it fits. It's like, why wouldn't you just take it off and flip the bumper around? But like I don't know. Yeah, I mean, those things, obviously that's stuff that nobody was supposed to see or know about or care about, but like I like that stuff because it does add to the unique profile of each one. Like each one's got its own weird shitty applied parts or stickers or whatever. I don't know, you really call it a mistake, but like the way the ribbon cables, a couple of them are twisted around the opposite direction, and whether that's from disassembly and reassembly and somebody just put it on backwards, who knows, but
not paying attention when they were putting it on. I think it comes down to our favorite aspect of the packs, which is the notorious word wonk that you hear thrown around so often in these discussions, that it's the wonk that makes them so unique.
Yeah, I mean, and I can't remember if we talked about this in the last episode or if it was one of the many recordings that we've attempted since then, but how nothing on it is really symmetrical in terms of like the fins. None of the fins are perfectly symmetrical. You've got a couple of crooked fins. You've got the little square segments on the very bottom of the crank generator. Those, to me, it's always looked like one solid strip that they've glued down, and then they've just taken a file and filed the notches in to make it look like separate segments. But they're really wide on the ends, and there's one really skinny one on the left, and and those things, again, we know the reason is because they were just rushed, and they just had to get it done when they had to get it done. But to me, it sells it as these guys built these things in a workshop. Maybe they're not trying to get exactly precise, as far as the external components are concerned, because they're not really important. They're cosmetic,
right?
It's the function of the pack that matters, and yeah, I mean, that's something that's so great about these props in particular, is the just the uniqueness of each one. You know, they are the same but different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, how about where these packs now reside? We know, of course, that the superhero and the Venkman hero are still in possession of Sony. We
Yeah.
know that the Spangler hero is in, goodness, what's his name? Dan
Lanigan.
Thank you. Dan Lanigan's private collection, which is probably one of the best private prop collections ever. I mean, he's got everything. He's got the Hero Blade Runner blaster.
Yeah, I was gonna say he owns my 2 favorite props of all time. So like,
Yeah,
I could go visit his collection, see a Spangler pack and Deckard's PKD blaster, and then I could die happy right there.
But he also has a PKE meter. He has one of the Hero Ghost Traps. He has the Alien Queen maquette. I'm pretty sure he has a pulse rifle. I mean, the dude's collection is incredible. And then the Stance hero, which was funny. The Stance hero, I remember, showed up in photos in maybe the late 2000s. I want to say maybe between 2009 2010, of this guy in England wearing a Rothko jumpsuit, wearing the Stance hero Proton Pack, not a replica, the actual pack to a convention.
I remember when those pictures first came out. Like, I remember I just saw the pictures first. I was thinking, man, that is a really good looking replica. Like, that's one of the best ones I've ever seen. And then I start reading, and it's like, oh, it's the Stance pack. Like, I think at the time they were referring to it as the courtroom pack because it had been screen matched to
Ghostbusters
the courtroom scene.
Sure.
But I guess as further research went on, it was confirmed that it is the Stance hero pack.
And we have like almost no information how that Proton Pack got over there.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to know the story of, and maybe it's some kind of like underground black market thing, and nobody's supposed to know how it got there. Like, I don't know, but just how does one come into possession of one of those in the first place if it's not through, an auction house or something?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't, Sony, I'm sure, is not just willingly giving them up unless it is for an auction,
Unless it had something to do with the off sale of Planet Hollywood props, items that didn't get returned to Sony.
But as far as I know, that was never displayed anywhere. That doesn't necessarily mean maybe they didn't have it in the possession to be displayed and it just never got displayed.
That's true. And the other one, the final hero prop that is currently missing in action, that's going to be the Zedmore hero. That would be the Omni Pack.
Yeah.
And we have photos of course, screen captures of Ernie Hudson wearing the pack, and then, of course, the Omni cover. But then we also have 2 photos of Ernie Hudson donning that pack again in full costume for the premiere in 1984.
Yeah.
So we know up until the premiere that it was in Sony possession. And, it was during our first attempt at the round table that it was postulated, what if it exists in that salt mine? That they went back and got all the Ghostbusters dailies and lost footage from. And it just tickles me to think that there's this salt mine that has all the answers to all of our questions.
Right? Like, the only hole in that theory for me is like, okay, they went down that salt mine to retrieve all these dailies and stuff, and there was a Proton Pack down there. Like, why didn't they bring it back?
Maybe they didn't even know it was there.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been in a crate and they just didn't crack it open. Who knows?
I think it was Matt on a tour to Sony Archives. They found a slime blower in a crate and they didn't realize what it was.
Yeah, like,
these are not things that are revered or revered in the same way by the studios that they are by us. I mean, they're finally starting to catch on with prop collecting in the past few years, as it's exploded, as it's being traded almost like fine art now.
Yeah, which makes me happy because finally some of the stuff that at least the stuff that hasn't been lost to time and the elements or whatever can be appreciated and can be at least cared for a little better than the studios usually tend to.
Absolutely.
And kind of sidetracking for a second in terms of like the Ecto 1 and the Ecto 1A. We know that Ecto 1 kind of got like a half-assed restoration, but at least it got some attention. They intended to restore Ecto 1A and it just didn't happen, but it was nice that it kind of found new life as an afterlife Ecto.
I still hold out hope that one day it might be restored. Water cooler talk says that the Ecto 1A roof rack and equipment is someplace else now.
Yeah.
So, I can neither confirm or deny any of that information. But there's some great 1A replicas that are in the works, so I'm excited about that. But as far as the Proton Packs go, those are where the heroes now reside. And still would love, if there's anybody out there that knows where Zedmore Hero is, or the Omni Pack, which is, of course, the same pack. There's a number of details on that one in the Stance pack that I know a lot of fans are still begging to be answered. And namely, it has to do with side knobs on that wand.
Yeah.
So, all the heroes that we have had viable access to, there's these offset side knobs on the left-hand side of the wand. And we know from the semi-hero castings that at least one wand had knurling on those knobs.
Mm-hmm.
And every other pack has smooth. But then all the photos that we have show smooth side knobs. So there's still one thrower that we don't actually know what the side knobs were. And it could be the Stance, or it could be that Zedmore.
Or, and it's always entirely possible that for some reason, after the mold was made, they removed the knobs and replaced them for some reason.
Yeah.
That's always a possibility. Like something, a really unique detail of the original stunt. Oh, excuse me, not the original stunts. The Ghostbusters 2 stunt packs, the wands specifically. For whatever reason, they don't have the regular clippered knob.
No.
It's been replaced with a skirt, some kind of skirted knob. Like the skirt has just been glued on top of the clippered valve. I have what was the purpose of that? What wand was used to mold for those? You would assume it was the same as the whatever was molded for the semi-hero. But clearly the semi-heroes, utilize real clippered valves. Maybe they made the mold for the semi-hero, and then they went to make the mold for the stunt after that using the same wand, and they swapped some parts out. Maybe the knurling wouldn't have it would have caught too many air bubbles or something at the foam. Like, who knows?
Well, then you want to talk about stunts. Ghostbusters 1 stunt Proton Packs, their entire ion arm is reversed.
Yeah. Actually, that clippered valve thing may be on the GB1 stunts as well. I don't recall. I know there's a couple of examples of GB1 stunt foam wands out there, but I don't remember if the clippered valves were still intact on them or not.
Well, I know one was recently on display in LA for like a Ghostbusters prop extravaganza, and Sean Bishop's Ecto was kind of the main attraction of that display, but he also allowed his Ghostbusters 1 stunt pack, which still has its original ribbon cable on there.
That was on display?
It was on display recently.
I have not seen a single photo of that. So
I've seen a few photos of it. It's a very strange display because it has the original Ghostbusters stunt pack, and then it has some Afterlife props. And
I've seen the Afterlife stuff.
Yeah, and I want to say the PKE meter that was on display at this particular show is the one that looks like it's been put back together.
Yeah, which that's a whole other episode.
That's a whole other episode. But then the whole museum display got weird because there's a lot of Mattel stuff. And
yeah, I remember seeing the display case. It's got like toys and Mattel stuff, and then some replica stuff, and then there's like a few little screen use pieces scattered in there.
But not like high end replica stuff.
Yeah,
It was a little confusing. Um, but
I mean, it's like straight out of the Planet Hollywood playbook, right?
it
Like
really was.
you mix screen use with some kind of okay replica stuff,
And then call it all screen used.
and the general public just doesn't know any better.
Well, no, of course. I mean, the general public also doesn't care.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
They're like,
just
oh,
cool, Ghostbusters.
Yay, Proton Packs. So, talking about some of the other uniqueness, you had mentioned the Spangler one, or the Spangler Hero. I guess, other unique things is on the ion arm cap. The lower rod is a little bit longer. It doesn't have knurling.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. What are other unique aspects of the Proton Packs? Or is it really the biggest outliers are the Superhero and the Spangler?
I would say probably, yeah. I mean, those seem to be the ones that have the most differences from each other, from the other packs. Like the Spangler's got that one random screw, like socket cap screw, like over by the ribbon cable.
Mm-hmm.
What is that for? Is that holding something internally, like electronics, or
Right.
who knows?
It becomes
Yeah.
because one of the things I love about the props is how much we can learn, and getting to obtain that knowledge and getting to do that research and see how they put these together. And we ended up with so much after the fact information on the Superhero that how it looked in 83 becomes the big question. But then on something like the Spangler pack or the Venkman, we have so much information from then that we're not entirely sure why it's constructed the way it is now. And it's like, can you give us an hour and an Allen head, set, and let us just take this apart, take a look at it, and we'll put it back together.
Man, I wish that would be the dream. Like, part of me is like, oh, I would never want to take it apart. But then part of me is like, well, yeah, I mean, why not,
So there's a good question. How do you feel about the most recent semi-restoration on the Superhero pack? I'm torn on it. I'm torn on it
too, because it's like,
Well, they chose no two better people to do it.
Yeah.
If we were to trust a project like that to anyone, I think the two people that did it, I'm not going to name drop in this instance, but the two people that did it were more than qualified, and
yeah, absolutely,
everything that they would have done would have been from a place of love,
and very careful,
careful
with the disassembly and the reassembly, which I'm grateful for, and it's because of that we now, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong on this, but like it's now the reason why we're having access to the legacy shells for Max Factory, and
that is my understanding. Yeah.
And for replica builders, and especially the extremely detail oriented and accuracy buffs like us, like having that direct lineage is incredible.
Oh, it's a dream come true.
But having to disassemble a screen used Hero Proton Pack to get there is, I'm torn on it, because it's like, yeah, you're having to drill out rivets that have been there since 1983 or 84. You can't replace those. That rivet's gone.
Yeah.
And other things that had to be done.
Yeah. Did they erase any of the clues?
Yeah. But and that's the thing, is like, now if it's ever photographed again, it's like, what is a new discovery, or what's just something that's been altered since that restoration?
Sure. Well, I would have full faith that even if it's not documentation that's privy to everybody, that those restorers would have incessantly documented how that pack looked before they did their semi-restoration on it.
Without a doubt.
And I would love for that to be something that should be released as a book as well. That would be something that I would buy, a nice coffee table book of that project.
Yeah, that would Sony, if you're listening,
They're not.
somebody that works for Sony, somebody
Yeah.
has contact with Sony.
Anyone.
Let's get on that.
We're making a lot of demands this episode. We're getting needy.
Yeah.
We're
That's
getting
okay.
needy.
Hey, this may never even air, so as needy as we want.
When we re-record it again in a day or two.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's I'm torn on it, but like ultimately it happened, and there's nothing we can do about it at this point. So I guess I'm grateful for what it is, the opportunities it's presented for the rest of us, to be able to get access to like a lineage shell and things like that.
Absolutely.
Maybe one day it'll all get declassified, and any information or discoveries that were made during that deconstruction and restoration can be made public. But until then, I guess we're still going to have to play archaeologist and try and reverse engineer it ourselves.
Hey, I mean, at least that's half the fun.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun.
So if you could have one mystery, if you could have one photo of any of the Proton Packs, from 1983 during the production, which pack would it be and why?
Oh man, like just a general reference photo of a specific pack.
Yep, you get one photo.
Okay.
It could be any angle. It could be any pack. It could be of any mystery. You get one shot at solving a mystery that has plagued you.
It would be the stance pack.
Mm-hmm.
Front-facing view, but the wand is on the ground with the left side facing camera. but at a slight angle where you could see those side knobs. And hold on, I also have to say that the wand also has to be far enough forward that it doesn't impede the view of the cyclotron and the infilter and all that stuff.
You mentioned the cyclotron. There's a detail on the hero packs that's not on the superhero that we haven't talked about, which is the dominoes.
Yeah, the little dots. Some of them are threaded, aren't they?
They're threaded. Yeah, these little white threaded dots. I cannot for the life of me. The best guess that I've heard is that it was used to orient the bumper when they were drilling them on.
I've heard that, but to me it doesn't really make a lot of sense because they clearly didn't care that much.
Well, on the superhero, the bumper is relatively oriented, but then is bent up.
I see. Is it? Because I was pretty sure it's like pretty crooked. Like it's high. Like if you're looking at the pack, it's higher on the left side than it is the right side.
Well, the arm is higher, but the rest of the bumper is still pretty well where it's supposed to be.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you if you're looking at the front face of the pack, the left side of the bumper seems to be pretty flush and level, and you get to the bumper knob, the bellows, and that looks to be in a great spot. And then you start to get to the right side arm, and then it bends up,
okay.
and it's just doing whatever the hell it wants.
Yeah. And to me, and we have some evidence of this, like with the booster frames, like some of this stuff, I wonder if it wasn't like straight out of the mold and like right onto the pack.
Oh, like it was still soft, it was still curing?
Like it might have still been a little soft, yeah. Because I mean, I know, resin can deform, over time, but like is squished down as some of those booster frames are from tightening down of the.
They almost look like that the main part of the booster frame was made out of Eva foam.
Yeah, like to me that just screams like they just pulled it out of the mold. Okay, it's still a little soft, but we don't have time for this shit. We're just gonna drill a hole in it and slap it on there,
Well, even looking at the Omni cover, that Proton Pack still looks wet.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that doesn't even look like a high gloss paint. That pack just looks wet.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was ever decided, and it may all still just be speculation, but like that pack, it looks like it was repainted and then photographed for the Omni cover, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't like freshly painted and they shoved it in front of a red background to take a picture for the thing and then went on to film,
Yeah. Well, and so that's where it's interesting. So if we go on the continued best guess that the Omni Pack is the Zedmore Hero, we know that it got a little bit of weathering in the movie, but we know that during production, those magazines weren't made yet. Because
yeah, that's true. Because if when you look at the pictures of Ernie at the premiere, it's very clearly a fresh paint job. So yeah,
it is. So yeah, they must have wrapped up principal photography, looked at that pack, and they're like, "Hey, let's repaint this."
I'm also curious, like how much of it was disassembled and how much of it was just taped over so that they didn't get paint on shit.
Gosh.
Did they just tape off the warning labels? I mean, obviously the warning labels they probably did. I can't see them removing those, but like,
well, we don't have any good reference to see where there is paint bleed to back. God, it's one of those packs. Is like one of our guests for the round table is going to be Matthew Burkett, and we're also going to have Mikhail Lynn on the round table, which I'm really really excited about. And one of the packs that Matt built is the Omni Pack.
Yeah.
And so we'll try and have to remember to talk to him on how he addressed that paint job. Did he go for the super high gloss, looking like perpetually wet paint, or what he did there?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I remember way back in the day, there was speculation that maybe Ernie Hudson had a Proton Pack because it was one of those like, I heard through the grapevine somebody asked him at a convention or whatever, and he said, "Yeah, he's got a pack from the original movie." That
would be a weird thing for him to have.
Yeah, I mean, we know he had some jumpsuits.
Well, jumpsuits are one thing.
Yeah, a whole hero pack is, if Dan Aykroyd didn't get to keep a Proton Pack, which he probably wanted to.
I know he tried to keep the car.
Well, yeah, that's true. So, I mean, there's also the very real possibility that it's just gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it got destroyed or damaged, and they threw it away. Like, who knows?
Yeah,
I hate to think of that, but
well, we already lost one pack to the trash bin, which is just the most unfortunate of stories. Which one? That was one of the semi-hero packs that Sean Bishop and Ken Hugel.
Oh my
acquired.
God! Yeah.
Heartbreaking story in which when Ken moved overseas, the pack did not make it, and they told him it was lost, but he still found parts of it in the dumpster near the airport or on the airport premise.
That's the worst.
Absolutely the worst. With no explanation.
That was the Venkman, right? The Venkman.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the Venkman semi-hero. But thank God for them, they documented it pretty well and good before.
Exactly what I was just about to say is like, yeah, thank God they took it apart and they took pictures of the inside and all that. Like,
yeah. Ken Hugel and Sean Bishop, those are names that you're going to hear a lot on this podcast because they're true godfathers of the hobby, much like Norm Gagnon. They were there when people were really starting to get serious about it, and gosh, what a heartbreak though.
And because he didn't, if I remember right, it was up for sale like on an eBay auction or something
like that. Yeah,
and he won it, and I don't think he really had it that long.
No.
But we can save that for the GB2 discussion.
The Ghostbusters 2 talk, yeah.
I want to talk about ribbon cable really quick.
Let's talk about ribbon cables.
Because this is something that I keep meaning to bring up every time we record this episode, and I never do, so I'm doing it now. The ribbon cable of the first Ghostbusters 1 Proton Packs it's kind of like it's the one thing nobody's found. You know? Like you said, Sean Bishop has a stunt pack that still has an original ribbon cable attached to it, which, as far as I know, that's the only surviving example.
Correct.
I want to know what it's out of. it's not custom made. It's some kind of existing thing, right?
It's an existing thing that they found. It is absolutely an existing thing that they found. I remember the conventional theory behind it was that it was out of an aircraft and that it was
which would
some
make
kind
sense.
of cabling that would run along the floor panels, which
Yeah.
would make sense from its design. But we now know that there was a lot of components that seem to have been pulled out of Burroughs' adding machines.
Interesting.
There's some photos of, they're large scale. They were used by like IRS auditors, tax people, stuff like that. Big league accountants. They had these massive Burroughs adding machines that all had lights on them that are the hat lights.
Okay.
And then
makes
some
sense.
people found photos of the inside of the machines, and there's pieces and parts in there that look very similar to the ribbon cable. And even parts in there that look very similar to the HGA.
Huh.
Yeah.
I do remember the HGA stuff, which I thought was really interesting. Again, that could be one of the situations, kind of like that radar piece, that maybe it wasn't the actual found item, but it was definitely the inspiration for.
Yeah, the HGA is definitely not a found item. Looking at the construction,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hollow. The bolts that run through it, the Allen cap bolts, actually run all the way through and into the shell.
Really?
Yeah, all 4 of them run.
I did not know
through.
that.
Yeah, that's something that's been described to me. It's when I get a aluminum HGA from like GhostbusterFans.com or Freaky Geeky, they have simplified the process in which there is a bridge welded on the back end, so you just use one Allen head bolt to actually mount it. But on the screen used ones, at least on the Superhero, it could have very well changed for any of the hero packs, but at least on the Superhero, those 4 Allen bolts that are on the outside of it are actually the mounting bolts and run all the way through the HGA and into the shell.
I'm probably wrong, but I would almost guarantee that is not the case for the other 4, because that seems like it would be such a pain in the ass to get those drilled and not hit the internal wall of the the pipe, the tubing.
Yeah.
I can imagine that's one of those things where it's like, okay, we did it this way, here's how we're doing it on the rest of them.
And that's an entire possibility, because we know that there were functional design changes on how those packs were assembled from the SH to the heroes.
Yeah, I know some of the semi-heroes they're just epoxied on. Are they is there any evidence of them being epoxied on the heroes? I don't remember.
Not that I can recall. They all seem to be bolted on, all mechanically fastened.
Well, like I know for Afterlife, they added a little mounting plate to the shell itself, like a little base that they can all like fit over. I don't know. I would assume they're probably screwed on, but like at least it's like a little thing to make sure you get them in the right spot every time, right? I don't believe that there's anything like that on the original shells.
Not that I can recall. I mean, I know
they all have slightly different positions.
Well, and then the semi-heroes, again, not to get too far away from Ghostbusters 1, but it's so hard to discuss one without discussing the other. That some of the semi-hero packs didn't even have labels on them.
Yeah.
Not on the HGA. And that was during filming. When I saw Ken Hugel's semi-hero pack before it was lost, I was like, oh, well, I guess the HGA label fell off, and then I was rewatching Ghostbusters 2, and nope, it just wasn't there.
Just wasn't there.
It just wasn't there.
Whether it's an oversight or they just didn't have one or what,
But the metallic label from the actual pack was there. So the ring for the label is there. It's cast into the HGA for the semi-hero.
See, that's something that I've always been curious about, but I've never done any research on myself. we know that I can assume that they probably replicated the labels for the semi-heroes, like they're just copies of the originals.
Yeah.
Um, but were any of the hero labels replaced with the copies for Ghostbusters 2?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I remember when it was kind of discovered that some of them were metallic.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like staring at pictures of like the Venkman hero. I'm like, I don't see any evidence that this thing is metallic. Like the gearbox label, it just looks like white text to me. Like I don't see aluminum there, but it's got dust and dirt and all kinds of stuff on it. And I've never seen it in person. And these are people that are seeing it in person. While it was on display at Planet Hollywood. So,
well, and the Venkman hero was the one that everyone pretty much accepts was cast for the Ghostbusters 2 semi-heroes.
Yeah, because I think all the welds and everything like match up perfectly.
All the welds match up, and then there's even evidence of the molding clay still existing on the hero.
Yeah.
As it is right now. Wands, however, we don't have that information. But it would be interesting. I know there's a lot of labels missing off of the superhero, but I think most of those labels just weren't there.
Because the superhero is the one that is responsible for everybody thinking there was a blue EDA label in one shot in the original, correct?
We thought that, and that was based off of the scene in Ghostbusters when they just pulled up to 550 Central Park West. They're pulling the packs out, and one of the labels, it's translating as blue. Now we understand that the label's not blue; it's just gone.
Well, and it's not even that it's just gone, right? Like, because can't you see there's still a label there? Like, you can see like the corner peeled up or something, but it's that topmost layer
is gone.
Was just ripped off.
Right. So I thought that might have been the superhero in that rack, but when I went back and broke down that scene, it doesn't match. The booster tube doesn't protrude the correct way, and the ion arm is set up in the conventional Ghostbusters 1 style.
Interesting. So at some point, the superhero label just is gone. Because it's missing currently, right?
It is currently missing, and it was missing during the filming of Ghostbusters 2. I don't think the superhero pack was ever in New York.
Okay.
And I think when they filmed that scene, that was part of the New York shoot. I know that they redid a lot of the outside of the building on a soundstage for the earthquake effects and things like that. But I don't think the superhero pack was ever in New York City.
Yeah, because that shot of the rack being pulled out of the back of the Ecto is facing the crowd.
And Central Park.
Central Park. So, that wouldn't have been the set.
Right.
So that's interesting. Well, and like the superhero label, it's missing now. And there's just like, isn't there just a gray primer spot?
It looks like it's a raw aluminum base.
Okay.
But it also could be a gray primer spot. There's kind of a crack in it, where it almost looks like there's like a black crack in it, but it's not a crack in the actual fiberglass. It's a crack that looks like from the label being peeled off. So I'm not sure if it's just translating as black because now we're looking at exposed, fiberglass, and that because there's no light in there, it just shows up as black. But that could be exposed primer. You're definitely right about that because it doesn't seem to have any width or height to it. It just seems to kind of be there. But then, looking at the pack, and I'm not sure which pack it is. I mean, it would have to be very likely the Zedmore pack that's being pulled out that we thought had the blue label.
Yeah.
Because all the hero packs that we know now have that top label, unless, like you had said, that some of them were replaced. But I'm not even sure if they were, because you look at the superhero in Ghostbusters 2, they didn't replace shit on that pack.
Yeah. I'm pulling up a picture of it right now. Yeah, it's really hard to tell if it's just I don't know, dude. I think it might just be the aluminum layer, because there's all kinds of scratches and stuff on the surface of it,
Mm-hmm.
but none of those scratches carry over into the black portion of the pack. They're all isolated within that gray area. So I guess it's just the aluminum layer.
It could be, but like you said, if there's no light under there, it's not going to translate as being semi-translucent. I mean, you look at the Stance Hero, and the parts where the paint had scratched off still communicates as black on screen. It doesn't translate as exposed fiberglass.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. Another one of those mysteries that may never be solved.
I mean, like
we don't see that EDA.
50% of this podcast is everyone thinking, "Oh man, these guys know what they talk about." But the fact of the matter is, we don't fucking know anything about these packs.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing. We're opening up the discussion.
Exactly.
But no, like that EDA label, we don't ever see it on the Omni Pack, and we don't see it in the photos of Ernie Hudson out front of the theater. So, I mean, it's entirely possible that thing never had the label replaced. You're right. Like, and that may be why they chose it to be the Omni Pack, because we're going to repaint it anyway, so it's already missing a label.
Yeah, it's the labels are strange, and then of course what they use as the labels, because I think there's some differences in between. I know the superhero, and that's another thing I need to modify. In my excitement, I put the little red circuit diagram on the wand, and it's not there.
Yeah.
It's definitely not there, and it's not even something where they painted over it, because those dry rubs that they used communicated in the molds.
Yeah.
To the point where if you look at a Semi-Hero Pack's end filter, you can actually see in the mold those dry rub transfers. So if you were to paint over it, there would still be evidence, but it's not there. It's not there in Ghostbusters 2. It's not there in how the pack is now. So that's something that I need to very gently sand off and repaint on that thrower.
It's a waste of a good dry rub.
It really is, because those can sometimes be a little hard to find.
Yeah, you just got to look into it when somebody happens to be doing a run of them, which up until Max Factory seemed to be very few and far between.
It definitely could be.
I don't think AJ's had him in stock since like 2017.
I mean, he's so busy doing all these other awesome projects, trap knobs, injected molded trap knobs, and
Alice frame replicas and goggle replicas.
Exactly. So one of the things I would like to do for our roundtable, because we're having to re-record that roundtable, is I would like to open it up to our listeners to submit questions.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Because some of the things that we touched upon in this re-record, we drew out of the roundtable. I'm not even going to lie. I can hear Mikhail and Matt in my head being like, "But I talked about that." Sorry, guys. So one of the things I would love is we're going to try and re-record the roundtable discussion again this weekend with Mikhail and Matt. We're going to check into their schedules. And we are going to open it up for questions from our community. So you can, of course, find us on Spangler's 1984 Workbench, or if you want to post questions directly to this episode when we post it up, it will be going up midnight tonight for the Tuesday release. So we're going to get back onto our schedule. I know we missed a week, but we are going to get back to it. But I would love to see user questions, things that they want to know about the Proton Packs, things that they may not know about the Proton Packs, conceptions that they might have about it, that we would love to, either confirm or deny, or, anything like that. Obviously, we're not looking for questions like, well, how big were the hardware on the thrower or something like that. But I think that would be really cool. Get a little bit more of our target audience's interaction. What do you say, Austin?
I'm all for it. Just don't ask, flat black or satin, because
everybody knows it's satin. Everybody knows it's satin.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, I think we've pressed our luck enough for this episode, Austin. We managed to get it tonight in 2 separate recordings that will be easy to be put together.
And this time, And that was on my end. So
That was.
Congratulations to your internet tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm feeling very proud that I was able to actually go an entire recording now without having my connection hiccuping and resetting the whole thing. And I'm not going to have to combine 6 or 7 different recordings. Just 2 this time. And thank God it all happened at breaks in the episode.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is, part 2 of our 3-part session on the Ghostbusters 1 Proton Packs. I'm having a lot of fun discussing it, and I'm finding that every time we've re-recorded it, I think our recordings get better. So I will say that I think this is probably the strongest recording. The first time we tried recording this episode, we kind of swayed a little bit. I think we were a little tired. So this time I felt like we were definitely back on our A game. How about you?
Yeah, the last one we went on some real tangents, just kind of all over the place. Like, yeah.
Everywhere.
Wasn't very focused. I mean, it was still Proton Packs, but it was just kind of like, whatever.
It was everywhere.
And there's still stuff that we talked about in the previous recordings that we didn't talk about tonight. But hopefully we can remember to bring them up in the round table and just kind of,
absolutely.
This is by far not going to be the last time we ever talk about Proton Packs. So
it's not?
No, we've got 2 more movies worth of the original films, and then we're going to talk about those reboot packs at some point, dude.
Yeah. This is true. So we probably have a good amount of content as far as Proton Packs, and of course we'll always be talking about Proton Packs because this is a Ghostbusters prop podcast. How can you not talk about Proton Packs?
I just think it's great. We went like 4 episodes before we talked about it.
That was my favorite thing. Well, we had to give them something to want to look forward to.
Yeah, now that after the round table, nobody's gonna care
ever again. They're gonna be like, "Oh, okay, whatever." Well, awesome. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
I will leave everybody with the final thought from the round table we recorded the other day, which is Proton Packs are cool.
They are,
and you should build one.
Absolutely.
So get out there and build one.
Absolutely. So this is Dan Harshman and
Austin Young
for the Black Firehouse Podcast. Please like us on Spotify. Check out our RSS feed. Episodes go live on Tuesdays and then on to our YouTube channel on Fridays following that release. Thank you again for listening, and go out and build something.
As a duly designated representative of the city, I order you to cease any and all supernatural activity and return forthwith to your place of origin or to the nearest convenient parallel dimension.
Okay, so I'll see you later, huh? I'll give you a call.
Everything was fine with our system until the power grid was shut off by Dickless here.
2 in the box!
Ready to go.
We be fast and
They be slow.
Ray has gone bye-bye, you guys. What have you done?
For whatever reasons, Ray, call it fate, call it luck, call it karma. I believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe that we were destined to get thrown out of this dump. For what purpose? To go into business for ourselves.
Boy, the superintendent's gonna be pissed.
We're ready to believe you.